What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Beyond IT podcast. Today, I have with me a very special guest, somebody who I've known for, probably, I think it's the past 6 or 7 years now, and his name is Zig Zsiga. He's a founder of Zigbits.tech. I'm pretty sure if you guys are on LinkedIn, Twitter, you guys have probably seen him out there. He's a double CCIE in routing and switching service provider, as well as a CCDE. He's a husband, a father, and also a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps. He loves learning and mentoring other people as well, which is, I think, one of the greatest things that you can do in IT, because you don't find a lot of people who are willing to do that. I'm just extremely excited to have him here. And without further ado, Michael, or Zig, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you so much, but I appreciate it. And you can call me Michael or Zig. Zig stuck hard years and years ago when I was playing soccer in high school. And, my local family, most of my family members still call me Michael, but outside of that, almost everyone calls me Zig. I answer to both. I answer to Hey You too.
Hey You.
All those things. So
I'll keep that one to later, the Hey You stuff. But yeah, when I met you, so Michael and I met. It's kind of interesting because my first two podcast guests are Michael, so it's try to call you Zig. But when we met, we were I was going through my CCIE journey, kind of just starting off with the CCIE written, moving into the lab section, and I was looking for a study group, and so I went online in the INE forums, I think it was, and I'm looking for somebody for to study in a small group of people. And I want to say Chad, or maybe it was it was probably Chad that reached out to me, or Kyle, and said, hey, we have a group here, and let's give you a shot, and let's see if you can join the group. And I did, and you were one of the people within the group, and one of the people that was more further along in the IE journey than I was, right? And at the time, everybody called you Michael, I think, or at least I just got used to calling you Michael. So that's how it is.
Yeah, I wasn't at that time. I hadn't fully adapted to using Zig in the professional world, right? So I was always saying Michael and then air quotes Zig and then Zigga. So people that worked with me on a daily basis still called me Zig, but like a lot of my friends called me Michael. But the last 3 years, it's kind of like just evolved into everyone just calling me Zig. It's easier. There's so many Michaels. Like you just said, like your first two guests are Michael, right? Like,
yeah.
I remember one grade school, elementary school, I think second or third grade, and there was 7 Michaels in the class. And then one of the kids had his last name was Michael, so there was just Michaels all over the place. So nicknames became a big deal. Hey, thanks for having me on the show. I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great show. I think you got a great concept, and I'm happy to be here, man.
Well, thanks for being on. So you work at Cisco now as well. I know when we first met, I was working at Cisco, or I just started working at Cisco, and you've been on board with us now for a couple of years now as well, right? Like 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, I'm hitting my 3-year mark. Either I hit my 3-year mark last week or this week. Yeah.
Oh, wow. I thought you'd been with us a little bit longer. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do at Cisco as an SIA, or maybe even explain what an SIA is?
Yeah, so the role, they keep changing all the names, first off, right? So the SIA role no longer exists. The SIA, the title was Solution Integrations Architect. So a lot of people see solutions architects out there, but they don't see like the integration aspect. And that title really did resonate for what we actually do in that role. Now they call us customer delivery architects. It's just a different title, but the same role. Okay. So nothing really transitioned, at least not for me. And really what this role is all about, I'm in the delivery side of things, is that we call it actually CX, customer experience, customer success, those two type of roles and those type of things. So my role within my customer space is a number of aspects. I have holistic oversight from a technology perspective and architecture perspective for my customer base. So I'm supposed to know pretty much everything my customer is thinking about doing or going to do or planning to do or did in the past from an architectural perspective. And it's more than just saying like one place in the network, like data center or campus or security. It's truly cross architecture, what we call enterprise-wide architecture. And I am the technical lead for my customer space. I do my customer space, just to be clear, is U.S. government. I do a lot of stuff on the military side, different military departments. And I have about 30 engineers kind of on my team. They don't technically report to me, but I am the technical lead for this account. So anything that we do from a technology perspective, high-level designs, low-level designs, architectural discussions, all come through me for the customer space I have.
Wow.
Does that kind of set the stage a little? Like,
yeah, definitely. It's even given me a better perspective of what that role entails. And yeah, they're constantly changing role names here at Cisco too. Even mine has changed too. But that's pretty cool. I actually wasn't aware that you were doing a lot of stuff on the government side, and it kind of makes a lot of sense, right? You coming from a military background yourself, does it require you to get any like security clearances or anything like that? Or
yeah, there's stuff like that, right? So there's different. I mean, people will have different levels of clearances and whatnot. And then obviously we all have different levels of certifications. You know, my team is pretty filled with CCIEs and multiple CCIEs. And then also everyone, you know, if they need to have a clearance, it's all about need to know, right? You have to have either a clearance, or it's more important to be a U.S. citizen. So that's really the designating factor there is, in most cases, it's fine just to be a U.S. citizen. So.
Okay. So you mentioned you cover,
One more thing, if I can, I just want to articulate a couple things, right? So this role, it's an awesome role. It's actually what I was meant to do I feel like it was what I was meant to do from a technology and architecture perspective. But one thing I kind of missed, and I want to make sure I harp on it a little bit, is this role truly maps the technology side or architecture side of an organization into the business. So as we go through this and we talk about these things, I don't know about you, but like I know when I started in the career, we didn't talk about business all that much. We didn't talk about designing for a purpose. Like what was the reasons, what are the requirements? And so what I do today is truly that role. That is it. Like I literally identify the business requirements, and then we identify the architecture solutions that meet those requirements for the customer space. Now this role, I'll tell you, outside of like me being a nerd and being in the command line on my own and labbing things out, we don't do a lot of command line stuff. I'm at a higher level, having these conversations with what you would call like a CEO or a CIO within an organization. So that's who I'm talking to, right? And I'm not in a suit today, but usually I'm in a suit and fully dressed up and having a conversation with some sort of leader within a customer space about their kind of business and what they're trying to achieve.
Yeah, so that's kind of how we differentiate advanced services from customer experience, right? So in Cisco, advanced services is really more the hands on the keyboard, the actual services that are being rendered. From a customer experience side of the house, it's really more around having that customer advocacy, watching out for the best interest of the customer, assisting the customer with adoption and design, best practices, and that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. I mean, we do have people on the team that do the command line stuff, right? So not to diminish that. Like my team has architects on it. I have a group of 5 architects, and I have about 20, 25 technical leaders and NCEs or whatever they call them these days. They're just they're network engineers, right? Both all the way from the junior level all the way up to the senior level of network engineers, and they support my customer base. And some of these rock stars of engineers, they have multiple certifications, multiple CCIEs. They're on site with the customer every day. And one thing that may not be the same for you, we have a direct contract with our customer, so we don't have to go through a partner. I don't know if people know that, right? So normally, from a Cisco perspective, Cisco doesn't sell services directly to a customer. Services has to be sold through a partner, a Cisco approved partner or value added reseller. And then that company kind of does the agreements directly with the customer. In my situation here, we don't have that. We actually have a direct contract with our customers. So there's no middleman. I call my customer every day if I want to have real live conversations with them, and we're truly a trusted partner.
Awesome. So you mentioned earlier that you cover not just routing, switching, but pretty much the entire portfolio, even if it's non-Cisco equipment, even if it's something in security or data center or collaboration. I'm in kind of a similar role in the sense where I span across multiple architectures. How how do you deal with that, and have you found that to be a difficult thing, or have you found it to be a enjoyable or easier thing for you to do to spread yourself across all these architectures?
So I think it's always been my wheelhouse. Every position I've ever been in, even before coming here, I've always been doing everything, right? Even before specifically being in like a networking focused or siloed role. I mean, even the Marine Corps, back when I was in the Marine Corps, we call them data Marines, but every data Marine knows security, networking, servers, web design, and maybe not today. I don't know how they do it today, right? I haven't been in the Marine Corps in a long time, so it could have transitioned, and they have more of a siloed environment now. But back when I was in, if someone picked a data Marine, which again, data means IT, we just called it data. There's a level of experience and understanding that data Marine should have. And all data Marines should have that same level of understanding and experience in all those facets. So there's not one data Marine that knows more than the other. Now, in reality, there are, right? There's going to be. But in this situation is if some leader wanted to pick a data Marine for a specific mission, they could pick any of them out of the pool. And that's really the goal. The goal there is to be able to pick any out of the pool, not be limiting themselves by, who's specialist or who knows more, et cetera. But even from there, right? Even from there, I've had to be doing everything from a networking perspective, and it just kind of fit in my wheelhouse. The positions I've had the last couple times before here, I was doing the same thing. I was in charge of like the data center, access, all software-defined infrastructure solutions or software-defined networking solutions, security. All of these other aspects of networking were always in my wheelhouse, and I was always running them down. Before coming to Cisco on the partner side, I worked at E+, a partner company of Cisco. I led a lot of our local regions go-to-market strategy on all the software-defined solutions that are out there. And so I went to customers with, all the different vendor solutions that are fitting that software-defined WAN bucket or that software-defined data center bucket. So I would be able to say, hey, well, if you need these capabilities, then you would go with this vendor solution. But if you need, these capabilities, then I would go with that vendor solution. And so it just kind of is a natural flow for me to come into Cisco and already know how to do cross-architecture work, already know how to integrate these different solutions together, and then also map it back to the business.
Do you still get to work with some of the same customers that you did back when you were at a partner?
No, I don't. So when I got out of the Marine Corps, I was at a Navy contract position. So I was actually a contractor for the Navy for a little bit. And I spent a few years doing contract work, not specifically in networking. I was a server admin, and then I was a NOC manager. So not a SOC manager, a security operations center manager, contractor in one of the military departments to run the SOC. And after that role, I hated running the SOC. I hated that, just incident response in general, just not my cup.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I tried it out.
Interesting.
I was like, I've never done it before. I'll go try it out. And, within the first 3 months, I realized this is not what I want to be doing for the rest of my life. And really, it was just boring to me, right? Looking at logs all day, tracking the logs, seeing what's malicious. The fun stuff's like reverse engineering the malware and reverse engineering the viruses and all the different applications that come in.
But that's like the best part of that job, and it's like only like 10% of it. Most of the time, you're just threat hunting, right? It's
you're just looking at logs all day, right? And then you and you start the flow, right? You start going through that process. Okay, I need logs from these systems. I need to revalidate all this. I need a data capture. I need that hard drive. And like, there's things that you learn, like chain of custody of hard drives and data, a chain of
Yeah.
custody things. But you don't have admin access to anything anymore. You're asking other groups for that information, right? You're asking for logs. You're asking for, that data so that you can do an analytical, search of it.
Mm-hmm.
And not everyone else gets to do that reverse malware forensic analysis work, right?
Yeah.
You have to. There's only a couple people that do that, so it is a little limited. But yeah, like I said, I realized within the first 3 months that was not my job.
Okay.
I stayed there for 9 months because I was looking for the next right role. And at that time, I actually left the government world altogether for about 7 years. I went into the public, the commercial SaaS enterprise world. And honestly, when I went to there, I was lost. I felt disconnected from the goals of the company. Because again, I've been in the military and the government world for so long that it's kind of like I understand what I'm here for, right? I understand I have a purpose. And when I went to like the commercial world, where the companies all they care about is, for the most part, making money, right? Making money and saving revenue or saving margin or whatever. I found it really disconnecting from my personality. But at that time, I had a full-time networking position, which was my first time having a full-time networking position. And I loved it, man. That was the big part. I loved the networking role. And that's where I was like, okay, well, that SOC position wasn't my goal. It wasn't my thing, but this networking thing, that's for sure my thing,
That's how you figured it out. And
yeah.
I come from a very, I'm not going to say a similar background, but a background where I was also sort of a jack of all trades, dabbling in pretty much every architecture, except for maybe collaboration. I think collaboration is one of those architectures I just can't get into personally.
Yeah,
and yeah, it tends to be the case for a lot of data guys, right? A lot of networking guys just, I don't know what it is, but I can work my way around WebEx and call manager and stuff like that. But it's different for me. It just doesn't captivate me. But that's interesting. Did you did you get interested in technology because of the fact that you went to the military, or were you interested in technology prior to that?
Oh man, that's a great question. So, and just so everyone knows, this wasn't really like scripted for the most part. We had some rough.
That's how I like it. Yeah, that's how I like it.
So, we go back to baby Zig, right? I was always into computers when I was young. I already knew before I was 10 that I was going to be into computers in some fashion. I was programming when I was 10, writing my own Visual Basic code, QBasic code, C at the time. I don't even think people were doing a lot of C++ then. My uncle, who was a big influence on this, he was a programmer, and he did a lot of like major programs for like different Super Bowls, and he just did a lot of things for the government work as well. And so he actually gave me my 10th birthday all of his programming books and all of his floppy disks that had programs on it, and like I literally spent that like next 6 months just programming everything I could. You think of it, I tried to make it. I mean, it would games and applications and everything, and I enjoyed it. I've still not had a programming job though, so that's 20 years later, I still have not had a programming job. But that was the beginning. That was the beginning of my love for everything IT. In a couple years after that, probably when I was 15, maybe 5 years after that, I actually got a job at my school district to be the network administrator for the entire school district. So
at 15 years old, they let you get on the CLI, huh?
There was no CLI at the time.
Okay. Yeah, right. That's so true. I forgot.
There wasn't even a network. Just so we're clear, it was like disjointed, old-fashioned computers that didn't connect to each other. And at that time, we were actually building everything out from scratch, an actual network with an Active Directory type structure for authentication and servers, and think like Windows NT or Windows. What is it? I don't even know the one before that off the top of my head, but older servers, right? Older applications. Even before that, we used Novell. So that just to give you an idea. Yeah, right. Like old stuff that we don't necessarily see these days anymore. But back then, I was a full-time student taking college courses in high school, and then I was also working full-time at the high school, being the network admin. They redid my entire schedule so I could actually do my coursework the first half of the day, and I was done by 11, 12 most days, and I worked until 6 at the school every day. So everyone else, they got done to school at 3, right, or 2:30, whatever, and I worked until 6. But I looked at it like this: I got a free education, right, and I got paid to go to school and do a job, but have fun doing the job. And honestly, even though they cut my schedule in the mornings, like they said, you're going to have your classes to 11 or 12 or whatever the period was that ended the classes for me. I got pulled out of classes more times than not because there was a problem, and I was the only one that could fix it in the school district. Like we had one other person who's a full-time employee, right? He was like the network engineer, though that role didn't exist, right? It was more of like he was like the senior systems engineer at the time, or systems admin. And like he knew stuff, but like I was picking things up so much quicker that like I could really tell him, yep, this is what you would do here. I did that role for like 3.5 years, 4 years. Then I went in the Marine Corps.
That's so interesting, man, because I also had an uncle of mine that was an influence to me. And I mentioned it on the last podcast, I think, so I won't go into it now. But yeah, and my first job was working with him. And to your point, at some point, I say it because he said it, is at some point I started bringing up technologies and like virtualization at the time. VMware was starting to come up. We were using Active Directory at a very basic level, but I started doing a ton of research and, getting into how we can more effectively run Active Directory with like security groups and virtualizing instead of buying multiple servers. And at some point he said, wow, he said, I forgot what it was like to be young and still learning, right? And because sometimes you get to that point where you're starting to learn more than people that have been in that industry for a while. And at some point you trade places, right? Sometimes it's an inevitable thing because I still very much look up to my uncle, even now in his current role. How did you stumble across a position as a network admin at 15 years old? That I'm pretty sure we're going to have a couple of younger people in the audience wondering, how can I get a job like that? How can I get experience? I'm sure it wasn't just an accident, right?
I mean, I think it's, in my case, it was being in the right place at the right time and happening to talk to the right person about what I saw. And so I don't know if that would be an option for anyone else, right? So in my situation, I saw a problem and I happened to talk to someone about that problem, and that person happened to be the one in charge of the entire department, and I had no idea. I mean, I was 14, 15, right? And I didn't know who I was talking to at the time and what this lady had under her purview. But immediately she was like, well, thank you for telling me that. And the next day, like, hey, we want to hire you. And again, it wasn't like tons of money, for the record.
Yeah, sure.
Minimum wage, right? But it was money, right? It was, as a 14, 15-year-old
minimum wage, you're rich, man.
Paid internship, right? Like, this was great. And keep in mind, I worked at Burger King at this time too. And so it was like, I'm going to quit Burger King. Like, this is awesome, right? Like, I wouldn't work at Burger King anymore. Like, I'm getting paid to do what I love. But like, this was the beginning stages. Like, this is like the stuff that like most of us don't want to do years later. This is like going to every computer, installing updates or installing applications, right? Again, when I started this role, there was no network. None of the systems were connected to each other. So you literally had to go to every system. In some cases, you had to go in the BIOS, reset the order so it could boot to a disk, or, all the little things that you learn like on a help desk or as an admin, right? As a system admin or a network admin. And then like I got so good that I memorized like the product activation keys for all the software, because I was doing it on every switch and every computer and every school building in the entire district. I mean, I just got so good at it throughout the process that I guess not good at it. I guess it was so repetitive, right? It's not fun stuff. But then the second year of doing that, we actually did a huge renovation. The school got a whole much money, a lot of money from a budget perspective to create an actual network. And so like we actually, to the point that summer of my second year of doing that role, I worked more in that summer than I worked in the 4 years I was doing that internship, because we literally were like, they had backhoes digging fiber optic lines from all the different schools to the central office. I mean, everything got fully interconnected over fiber. We had networking switches there. We had firewalls. Again, we had the services like Active Directory or Novell, something similar to that.
Mm-hmm.
We had applications like web pages, like the school web page. We never had a school web page until then. So like something like a school web page was a big deal. Now I'm rambling, right? But back to the question you asked specifically, I think for me, what worked, it was like I was already into computers. And so I was already asking people about computers at the school. I was already friends, or not friends. I already knew who the computer kind of system engineer was. And I was always asking if he needed help. And I always took all the computer courses, right? Every computer course we had. Now, we didn't have CCNA or any of those type of courses, but we had programming courses. So I took my first programming course, I think my freshman year in high school. And it was like a co-op course. Mm-hmm. It was a college level programming course that they were teaching in high school. And that's how I started meeting these people that became like, hey, you are really good at this stuff. Let's, you could be potentially work this job.
Yeah. So one of the things that I wanted to highlight there is I think some people might hear that and say that it was an accident or that you got lucky, because you said that you were at the right place at the right time. And I think a lot of people can confuse that for, well, he was just fortunate and it might have just been luck. But I personally don't see it that way. And I don't know if you would agree with me, but I see it more as when you are actively trying to help somebody, or you're trying to do good and put in your 2 cents on something that you like doing, that is a reason why you were in the right place at the right time. Right? You weren't out there looking for a job. It's just you were out there trying to help people. And as a result of doing that over the long term, it built trust with you, with the school district, and that ultimately landed you your first, official gig, right? And just wanted to make sure that was something that I call out there, because it's definitely not lucky. It's
that's a good point, right? I also downplay it too, right? It's I don't think there was luck, right? I think it's how you position yourself. Mm-hmm. I've always positioned myself as a person that's going to help. And I may not have the answers, but I'm going to help in any way I can. And this was one of those examples, even as a young child or a young kid or whatever, a young adult. I'm already trying to help. And I saw an issue, and it was a security issue with the computer system. And I showed this lady who was in the class with us. And she was like, wow, that's a big vulnerability right there. And she literally said, hey, you stay right here. Let me go call the system engineer, whatever his role was in. And they called him. He looked at it too. And there's a story about him too in a minute I could talk about. So don't let me forget that. But, they had this quick 20-minute conversation about this. And the system engineer walked off. He was upset, stormed off, not happy about the situation. And the lady came over and was like, hey, thank you for telling me about this. This is kind of a big deal. We're going to address this right now. And really the summarization there is that there was a security issue with the system where anyone could get access to it and do whatever they wanted, right? So full access. And we would call that like a high-level security vulnerability with full access to the entire network. Now, again, this wasn't a network at the time. So this was, every system had the same username and password. So you literally, if you knew how to do it, you could access every system in the school district.
I think I know what you're talking about. I recently had somebody reach out to me about a very similar kind of tactic, or I don't know if you want to call it an exploit or vulnerability, where even school districts to this day have that vulnerability in place now. So that's interesting. So did the systems engineer get upset at you, or what did he get upset about? What's the story?
Yeah, so he got upset about the situation, I'm sure. And, here I am, a 14, 15-year-old kid showing this issue, and now he's got to go address it, campus or school-wide, right? And there's no easy button, right? There's no software controller that's going to push the solution down. There's no patch management that's going to push the solution down at this point. Like, you got to go to every system and you got to, install a patch or whatever the situation was be to fix it. But But there's a lesson learned with this person, right? Probably a couple years into it. So I was hungry to learn, right? And I think a lot of us are, and I think a lot of people resonate with that. You want to learn, you want to find someone that can teach you stuff, right? And potentially increase your learning, the ability to learn more in a shorter period of time, right? What to focus on, make it easier for you to learn stuff, not to give you the answers per se, but to really show you, hey, focus on this. This is going to help you, instead of you making the decision, focus on something else. It's not going to help you and wasting that time. Well, I was very, very hungry for knowledge and understanding things. And I went to this, systems engineer, let's just call him that for the sake of the names, right? Yeah. And he'd been in the industry, from my understanding at the time, for 30 years, 40 years. So I would call him a seasoned, systems engineer that has been around. And I was looking at him like, hey, I want you my mentor. I never said that, vocalized it, but I reached out to him like, hey, I have questions, and here's my questions. And I may have verbally, spat a whole bunch of questions out at him because I was excited and passionate. And he just literally said, yeah, no, not going to help you.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh man.
And so that right there is a situation that literally changed my entire viewpoint moving forward in everything I do. Right. So we talk about leadership, we talk about coaching, talk about training. And obviously this person either was upset about something or didn't want to teach me or help me or guide me, be that mentor, be that coach, be that leader. And so ever since that point, I have made it my goal to always be humble, no matter what I know. And always help people and teach people and provide them the information they're asking for. Even if I don't know it, let me go find it for you, right? Like, this isn't hard stuff, and the information isn't locked. Like, there's no locking key that you need to get this information. If someone's asking for your help, you just got to help them. So that was just a big one for me.
That's pretty cool, man. I think it's a pivotal moment, that it's one of those fork in the road situations, right? Where you're presented with the unfortunate situation there with this guy, and instead of taking the road of, well, he's sour, I guess the whole world is sour, let me go be sour with everybody else, you kind of took that other road of, it would have been great if that guy helped out. I'm going to make it my life's mission to go and help other people. And I think that is great, and that obviously is resonating with what you're doing today right now with Zigbits.tech, right? You have your own podcast and platform and stuff, and I want to give you a moment to talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Yeah, sure. I have a whole spiel, so you can go ahead and interrupt me all you want.
Okay, I'm gonna go take a break. I'm just kidding.
Go to the bathroom, get a drink, whatever, and be back in about 5-10 minutes. You'll be good.
No, man, you go ahead. I'm not in a hurry.
Yeah, so like you said, my site's Zigbits.tech. Pretty much everything can be found there, but I'll just summarize a couple things as best as I can. I've been in this industry a little over 20 years now. And honestly, what I've realized, and I think a lot of people have realized it too, is that specifically network design is not something that we're taught early enough in our careers. At least I wasn't. And I know a lot of my friends and colleagues and other CCDEs that say the same thing. They just weren't taught network design early enough in their career. And there's honestly no reason why we can't be taught network design right when we get out of college, right when we get out of high school. We can be taught from the beginning how to properly design something. And honestly, that is something that you should be taught probably before you start doing command line stuff, is how to properly put things in a framework, put things in an architecturally sound situation, how to isolate fault domains, failure domains, and all that information that we all should know. So I know that was a long-winded little spiel, but the reason why I say that is because kind of my goal with what I'm doing in my platform is to fix that. Honestly, that's the easiest way to say it, is to change that perspective, that viewpoint, and get people to learn design, even if they're brand new, coming out of high school, coming out of college. They can come and learn network design. They'll get you real life use cases in any format that we have, the media format, and I'll get to that in a minute. But then also, if you're 30 years in the career field and if you've never done network design before, you can come over and learn network design. That's the whole point of my platform. It doesn't matter where you are in the career field, you can learn network design. Now, how am I teaching all this? I have a number of options. I have a podcast. It's called the Zigbits Network Design Podcast. It's ZNDP for short. You can go to Zigbits.tech/ZNDP to see the latest episodes and who I've had on the podcast, who have spotlighted or highlighted in the call on the podcast and the shows.
Let me stop you there for a second. Everything that you're going to be talking about here, I'm going to make sure to have in the description on YouTube, in the show notes for the podcast. So just go down there, click the link.
That's awesome. Yeah. And I try to summarize it as best as I can, right? So the Zigbits Network Design Podcast, that's where I do a weekly show. We usually do some sort of design-focused concept. Sometimes it's demystifying a role, as you might see. So I'm in the process of going through and having conversations, not just interviews, but conversations with professionals, be them network engineers, network designers, network architects, DevOps engineers, maybe potentially a sales engineer soon, maybe.
I'd be happy to.
Yeah, right,
I'll do it.
But the intent is to show you as a network professional what these roles are, which one resonates with you the most, right? Which one is the one you need to be or want to be in, you love to do, and then how do you start, really? Like, where do you go to start? Who should you reach out to? What should you read? What should you lab up to get you into that kind of mindset of that role? So that's my goal with that. And then we still do a whole bunch of design use cases in the podcast. So we'll have some designers come on. We'll do a situation where they had to design a specific solution, and we talk about why they did it. Why did they make that decision? It can be a technical decision. It can be a business decision. But we really have a back and forth understanding of why are you making those decisions.
So it goes back to that starting with why, right? And I think to your point, I think we start with when we start our IT journey and we start our certification journey and knowledge, we tend to go towards like the introductory level course, which is usually the how, right? How do you do it? What is that? What is a switch? What is a router? And how do you configure it? But you completely miss the why are we doing this in the first place, and why would you configure it a certain way first? And you would think that would be the first thing that you learn. Maybe learn what it is first and then learn why, instead of, I think that might be something that definitely feel like it's a gap out there. And I will say that I also haven't really had any formal network design training myself, and it may be a gap in my own knowledge, and I'm sure like it is for a lot of other people that are listening to this. And so that did that change for you? Did you kind of have that aha moment when you started working on your CCDE, or when did this kind of epiphany come to you?
Yeah, so I definitely, that the process of going through the CCDE really changed my mindset, and it really refocused me into a design mindset where I didn't have, honestly, a true design mindset. I can remember, I don't know what year it was, but I remember working at that commercial company that I was talking about, and I was a network engineer, and I was having a conversation with our CIO, and our CIO said, "You need to care more about the business." And I'm like, I don't care about the business. I only care about the technology. The technology is all that matters. The networking, the routing, the switches. Like, I don't care about your business stuff. And now I think about that conversation, years later, and I'm like, man, I was so naive. I had no idea why I was doing anything. And I made because I was a nerd, right? We're gonna run EIGRP because I like EIGRP, and we're gonna run it. Or I'm gonna install the full internet table on my edge routers because I want for internet table on the edge routers, right? I never made decisions with a clear understanding of why. And like you said, I mean, that's critical. Now, I would say when we're starting out in this career, understanding why isn't fun. It's not the fun stuff, right? I know from my own experience, right? Getting a router, getting a switch, plugging it all in, cabling it all up, and getting on the command line and configuring it is fun, right? It's exciting. It's a thrill. And going back and understanding, like, why are you doing all this isn't necessarily the fun stuff in life, right? It's not the good, fun, happy things that we like to do. But as we progress in this career, we have to understand why. We really do. We really do. So real quick on this thought, right? I said I had a whole bunch of stuff, right? So that's I talked about the podcast. I also have a YouTube channel. You can actually go to it. It's Zigbits.tech/YouTube. I make it really quick or really simple with direct links. And I do a new YouTube video usually every week. I'm kind of a little bit behind this period of time because I'm focusing on something else, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But the YouTube channel really is I'm doing scenario-based design situations and showing you, why are we doing these things, right? Something as simple right now as I'm doing a route leaking series on different Cisco devices. So this one's Cisco iOS XR. And it's like, why would we need to do route leaking? What's the point of it? And how do you do it? How do you successfully make it work, right? But understand all of this is scenario based. I write up a scenario about a situation. I'll read the scenario, pull out the key information, and then go and configure the environment based on the information in the scenario. That's the YouTube content, right?
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. I've actually been watching some of those videos, and I know your YouTube channel is fairly new, right? Compared to some of the other content that you have. So we'll make sure to try to get you some more subscribers there because it's definitely good content.
Hey, I appreciate that. Any subscriber is a happy subscriber, right? Maybe that wasn't right, but that's just what came to mind. So I am who I am. So I appreciate that. It's new. It's a baby YouTube channel, and it's in its baby phases. It's crying at night still, not sleeping, whatever. I was bad, but hey, it is what it is. I started my YouTube channel like years ago, but I never really did anything with it, if that makes any sense. Like I made like one video or two videos, and that was it. But lately, I've been like, I'm gonna get into this video content for another purpose, and the other purpose is my course. I'm actually creating a digital course, a self-paced course on network design, and the concept behind this course is that it's vendor agnostic. First off, it's vendor agnostic, so not any vendor specific course, not Cisco specific or any other vendor specific. And it's also certification agnostic. And the whole point is, if you don't know anything about networking design, you can come into this course and learn a whole bunch about network design. And out of that course, you're going to be successful. And every design decision you make is going to be successful. You're going to have the framework, the tools, the principles, the techniques, pretty much anything you can think of in network design. You're going to be able to learn at a high level. Again, we're not talking Cisco. You're not talking vendor specific though. So you're not going to see like a low level design configuration of a Cisco, product or another vendor's product. But what you could see is a framework for you to leverage, maybe my personal framework for you to leverage to really map everything accordingly. Why are you actually needing to do these things? Why does that customer that you're talking to or your business need to do these things? I'm
over here in awe about that because I don't think I've ever heard of anybody creating anything like that before. That's completely design and vendor agnostic and vendor neutral. At least not that I can think of. I'm sure there might be something out there, but I think in the position that you're in with the experience that you have and that drive that you have, I think you're poised to put together quite a compelling course there. Definitely something that I would be interested in looking at for sure.
Yeah. And if you're interested and anyone else is listening, you can join the kind of the email list, wait list, whatever you want to call it. It's a Zigbits.tech/network design. So all one word, network design. And then it'll go to a page where you can register and it'll have you get added to my email list. And I'm just sending out updates on where we're at with the course. But really quick, I'll tell you where we're at. Okay. It's going to be roughly 9 modules or stages. I'm calling them stages because I think stages just resonates better than modules. It's kind of like a stage in the process. I feel like that's better than module or chapters, but it's the same concept, right? And we have stage 1s already fully published out there for the early adopters. And I can explain what that is in a minute too. Stage 2, I am publishing this week. And there's going to be, like I said, 9 stages. My plan is to have everything done at the end of January of 2021. And then I will have the first opening kind of session in February 2021. So if anyone's looking to do that, wanting to hear about it, go to, again, Zigbits.tech/network design. Get on the email list. I will send out a ton of updates. Let you know what it is, where it is, when it's going to be open, how much it's going to be, all that kind of concepts, right? Yeah, I don't know if I missed anything there. I think that was it.
I think you're good. That's awesome. I'm definitely going to check that out for sure. And I'll put the link to that in the description and show notes. Kind of taking a couple of steps back and also taking into account like what you've already talked about. And I feel like we've addressed a lot of the topics that I wanted to bring up sort of directly and indirectly. But, for somebody that's trying to break into IT, what would you recommend? And feel free to throw in your opinions about where they should start learning design versus when they should start learning, IT or networking or whatever discipline. What would you recommend to somebody that's breaking into IT?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is that make sure it's what you want to do, right? Let me move my sleeves up here because it's getting hot. Yeah. So make sure it's what you want to do, because no one tells you that you take a job in any IT role, you have to plan to learn something new every day. I mean, on average, right?
Mm-hmm.
The industry is changing so fast, so rapidly, that if you don't learn at a fast rate, you're not going to keep up. You're just not. And so if you can't learn something new today to help you tomorrow, you get that process going 6 months, a year down the road, you're going to be so obsolete. And that's just the case with what's going on with this market, this industry. So that's the first thing, is be able to learn something new every day. Actually dedicate time, set it aside. If it's work time or personal time, whatever it might be, dedicate an hour every day to learn something new about your job, about your role, about your career. And if you're cool with that, because I love to learn, I'm a big fan of learning. I learn every day. I'm learning something new. I don't go to bed without learning something new every day. It's just who I am. But if you're not that person, it may not be the right field for you. I got to tell you, there's other fields where you're not learning something new every day, right? Like I don't know.
Accounting stays the same every year. Yeah.
I don't even know accounting, but I'm going to make that assumption that you don't learn something new every day. Like maybe a new software release of the accounting program, you have to know how to use that accounting program. But I don't think you need to learn how to do the formulas and the math all over again. There's no new thing. But I could be naive there. There might be. I don't know.
Yeah, we're probably extremely naive. Maybe the tax code is way more complicated than we think. I'm sure that is, but
that's why I have to preface that or whatever, preface whatever it is, because I don't know, right? I'm naive about it, but that's my thought is, if it does change, it probably doesn't change as rapidly, and as it's not just rapid.
It's drastic change. It's not just minor changes. Yeah.
Oh man, like DevNet, right, or DevOps. What a change, right? A huge impact. Yeah. Everything we do, and it's happened so rapidly. I would call it something like an evolving technology, cloud. AI, ML, so artificial intelligence, machine learning, all those things are rapidly changing what we care about in the industry. And we could talk about any of those things you want to talk about. I'm just listing them off because, again, those are examples of what you have to learn. And it doesn't matter if you're a network engineer. It doesn't matter if you're a server person, like a server admin or a systems engineer. It doesn't matter if you're a developer. Like AI and ML is something you have to learn in any of those roles. You have to know what it is. In my opinion, because you have to know how it works or how it's going to impact you in those roles that you're in.
I would definitely agree with you that if you're the kind of person that's constantly wanting to learn, and I think you kind of get to understand yourself at a certain age. Is this something that I really like to learn about all the time? And for me, that was always a profound yes. And I think definitely the same for you, right? Where you kind of started learning on your own just because you wanted to. Yep. And even though it was programming, has very little to do with what you do today, but that in itself is kind of translated towards, the next discipline of IT and ultimately has landed you to where you are today.
Well, I'll even dive into that in just a minute, right? So I was programming at 10, but I have all these Cisco certifications, but even before that, my degree is computer science. Like I went to college for programming. I've never had a job in programming, like I said, but I did a 4-year degree at college, got a computer science degree, right? And I can tell you that it has helped me in almost every single role I've been in. So even though I've never been in programming, I've been able to talk the language with developers and software teams. I've been able to help them troubleshoot code. I've been able to tell them, hey, let's not hard code IP addresses in the code, okay? Let's not do these things.
Sure.
right? I've been able to help them and say, well, why do you think you need layer 2 connectivity? Why, there's a design situation right there we could dive into, right? You're spanning layer 2 connectivity between data centers. And usually there's a reason why you're doing that. And usually it's an application reason or an application constraint or whatever. So instead of saying, yeah, I'm going to do layer 2 between data centers because the application team needs it, no, I push back on the application team. I'm like, hey, application owner, why do you think you need layer 2 connectivity? Let's look at the app. Let me help you, right? I know how to program. I'm not going to tell you that you're doing it horrible, I promise. But I'm going to be there to help you troubleshoot it and say, hey, why don't we do this? I think this will work, right? And be that team player, right?
Well, let me interject there because I am curious there. I've always wondered why certain applications, need necessarily to be layer 2, and I always kind of figured that there was some underlying reason behind in the application, and I know we've come up with other overlay type of solutions like VXLAN, NSX, ACI, all those. But what is the reason why an application might not support anything past layer 2?
Yeah, so the simple answer and the probably incorrect, like politically incorrect answer is the application was just built incorrectly, right? It doesn't support layer 3 connectivity. So the different modules or different servers or components within that application, they can only function on the same local area network, the same VLAN, same subnet, whatever term we want to leverage.
So
and that's the simplest.
Can every application theoretically then support layer 3?
No, so I would say yes, but there are some that just don't, right? So a lot of the multicast technologies that came out, maybe 10 years ago, there were some limitations on those multicast, not networking multicast. So I want to be like, it's not like we're running like SSM or any ASM or whatever. It's not a networking issue. It's not a limitation from a multicast perspective on the network side. It's a limitation on the application and how it's clustering. So it's specifically around, there are certain applications out there that developers will use for like databases and server clustering, and the underlying multicast configuration of those clusters, they rely on layer 2 connectivity. So that is another application or service, right, that was built with the understanding that, well, we're going to always be on layer 2 connectivity. Well, nowadays that's not the case. I mean, that's just not the case, right? So, but if you go to some of these organizations, you have these massive data centers that are really highly built, redundant, high available, amazing layer 3 architectures. They got fault domains and failure isolations, and it's awesome, right?
It's all segmented
but then you have layer 2 trunks between data centers, this data center interconnect link, and they have 2 of them because they need redundancy, and they have no idea that they're causing loops and broadcast storms. I mean, they're running spanning tree or fabric path or Trill or whatever, and I can't count how many times I've had an outage because of layer 2 connectivity between data centers and whatever technology. I mean, it's been tons of times, and I'm like, okay, well, let's shut down one of the ports. Let's stop the loops. Let's stop the broadcast storm, and then let's figure out how we can make this better, right? It's really, you're putting Band-Aids on a solution, right? You're putting Band-Aids on a situation that's not necessarily, it's just not designed the way it should be designed.
I got you. Well, thanks for diving into that with me.
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, when you brought that up, I was like, you know what? I'm actually kind of curious to know why at an application level, because I'm not somebody that I did not study programming at all. In fact, I gotta say I'm not I don't have the inclination towards programming. I do know a little Python, and I've taken courses and I've taken notes. But if you ask me to do even a hello world, I can't do it without going on Google or going to my notes and figuring out, oh, what was the syntax again for Python? And, it's one of those things for me where for whatever reason, I just have a hard time remembering if I don't use it. And I think that goes for a lot of people. And you having that experience, and I did go to college, but I didn't go to college for computer science. I went more of the business information systems route, which was useful, I think, in the role that I'm in now.
Yeah, I think it would be for sure. I think going the business route would have been useful for me too, honestly. But I mean, I'm not diminishing my degree was very useful.
Sure.
And honestly, I made the decision when I was going through the degree plan to not switch it, because I would have to start all over at the school I was at. I was already like 2.5 years in. It was a 4-year degree plan. And if I started all over, most of the credits weren't going to transfer over to networking. And so I was like, okay, well, I was going to stay in computer science. Like, I'll finish this off. Like, but at that point,
and there's already a lot of like contention on whether or not it's even worth going to college for a degree in IT, right?
Exactly.
I don't know if that went through your mind.
Well, I mean, I was already going through it. I was in the Marine Corps and I was doing night classes, and I wasn't going to stop. Like, I had this motivation. So I had gotten a full ride to a technical college when I was getting ready to get out of the high school. RIT, so Rochester Institute of Technology, not MIT, just so we're clear. It's not MIT, but it's
local. I know. I had a friend of mine that went there, actually.
Okay, friend. Maybe everyone else will too. But I grew up in Rochester, New York, and it was my dream to go to RIT. And I got early admission. I went there for like 2 years just to see the place and get it all familiar with it. And everyone in my family was like, "Yeah, you're going to go to RIT." I got it fully accepted, full ride, and I sent the acceptance information in my junior year, and by the end of my junior year, so that was like the beginning of my junior year. At the end of my junior year, I was like, "Yeah, I'm not going to RIT anymore. I'm going to go in the Marine Corps." Yeah, totally.
Why did you decide to make that decision?
So I mean, everything going on with I had a lot of friends that went in the Marine Corps, a lot of or the military in general. And I think part of it was a couple things, right? So at the time, I was a little naive, and when anyone say I couldn't do something, that just made me want to do it more. I don't have that issue nowadays, but that was something that, I think we were talking about one of my friends going to the Marine Corps, and I don't know if it was a family member or someone at school saying, well, you wouldn't be able to go in the Marine Corps or something like that. And I'm not like a main driver, but that's always something that played in my head at the time that like, well, that person, I couldn't do it. So now I'm going to go do it. I'm going to go like, yep, I'm going to knock this out and I'm going to do it. There's a couple reasons besides that were probably better reasons. I wanted to fight for my country. A lot of things were going on in Iraq and Iran, and I just felt like I needed to do something. And honestly, none of the other branches made sense to me. The Navy, the Army, not that they're bad. I want to make that clear. Not that they're bad. The Navy, the Army, the Air Force, they all tried to get me to go, and I was dead set on the Marine Corps. And something about the Marine Corps is you're never guaranteed your job. You're a Marine, and so you're a rifleman. And so that's your job. That's your number one job. Doesn't matter if you want data like IT or if you want to be motor T, which is like managing all the vehicles. Motor T is managing all the vehicles. So all the Humvees and big trucks of 7 tons to 5 tons. You have no say really. I mean, you can make hey, I would like this, but that doesn't mean that you're guaranteed that role. So you have to make the decision. Do you want to be a Marine? And I made that decision. I was like, I'm going to be a Marine. I don't care if I'm a grunt. I don't care if I'm IT. I'm going to be a Marine. I'm going to go I'm going to go to war and fight for my country. And then I'm going to come back. And I was like, at the same time, this is my justification at the time. But at the same time, I'm going to get a degree, a free degree while I'm in the Marine Corps. And so I put the work in. I put the effort in. I went to school at night. The Marine Corps paid for all my classes. And I finished my degree 2 months after I got out.
Wow.
All for free, right?
And I bet you would probably say that if it hadn't been for the fact that you went to the Marine Corps, there are probably certain things that you wouldn't have learned or grasped about like life or discipline had you not gone, right? And you probably learned a lot more about those kind of things than you bargained for, right?
Well, I mean, you're young, right? I was 19, 20, and I was in Iraq, and I was in charge of Marines on convoys. I mean, and you got to put it in perspective. Everything you have to put it in perspective. We're going out on convoys every day, and as I got promoted, I became the convoy commander as a corporal, as a sergeant, and like the 30, the 20 Marines that are in that convoy with you. Every decision you make, it's their lives, right? It's totally different perspective. I'm not trying to paint a grim picture, but like we care these days about money, right? We care about business success, and a lot of that equates to money. In most cases, it's not life or death. Now there's hospitals, and if you're working with a hospital and some other healthcare situations, that could be life or death. Police stations and stuff like that could be life or death. So there are some subsets that would be life or death. But like, in my opinion, in this experience, like there's nothing like leading Marines in combat, be it on patrols, be it on convoys or some sort of special mission. And you make a decision, right? And that's everyone. So if you make a decision going left on a street or going right on a street, like you have to live with that decision. There's no one can change that, right? If you go left and there's an IED and it blows up, I mean, you have to live with that decision, right? And if you go right and there's no IED, or maybe there is, I mean, it's the impact, right? But you have to make a decision, and it's a hard decision. You have to make the decisions, and you have to be okay with those decisions. And you're leading Marines every step of the way. You're in control of everything in their life. And there's nothing like that anywhere else, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine it. It makes you very intentional about, the way you approach your life now. And I see you, and I know we've talked in the past too about all the things that you're doing, and you share with me kind of your schedule and what you're trying to do and what you're trying to accomplish really for the greater good of our IT community here, right?
Yeah.
And it's probably, I know you have a lot of this already innately in you, but probably a lot of it came from, your experience in the Corps as well, from the discipline side, knowing and having the confidence that you're able to just have a goal, have a plan, have the intention, and just have the discipline to go out and do it. That's something that's very rare nowadays, right? So, and thank you for your service, by the way, if I haven't already told you.
Yeah. It's something I wanted to do, right? So I appreciate people saying thank you. I don't diminish that at all. I appreciate that. But it's something I decided to do, right? So no one imposed it on me. It was definitely my choice, and I would do it again. I would do it now, right? So I would do it today, every day. I was going to say something. So, I like to, and I don't know if we have to end. We're at like an hour. I don't know if we have to end or not. We didn't talk about time, right? So if we need to end, just let me know and I can stop talking. But I think at least in our country, I don't know if other countries have this issue or not. So I might be talking about U.S. specific, but I think a lot of us aren't used to making hard decisions. And what I mean by hard decisions, there's easy decisions that we can make, and there's hard decisions that we can make. And it can be as simple as waking up early in the morning because you have a goal. Something as simple as that, right? I have tons of goals, and I'm going to achieve my goals. Now, it might not be the right time. I might be behind my time, but I will achieve my goals. But what I mean is, like, I dedicate my mornings to my goals. So I will wake up at 4 or 4:30 in the morning Eastern, and I will spend 3 to 5 hours working on my goals. And those goals might be health goals. They might be content goals, like content creation, like the course that we're talking about. There might be something else, spending time with my son, or going for a walk with the dog. There might be goals that I'm gonna focus on. But the intent here is that I have to make a hard decision. The hard decision is to wake up at 4 in the morning or 5:30 in the morning or 4:30 in the morning. Sorry. If I don't make that hard decision, I make the easy decision to sleep in. That easy decision, it's so easy to make, right? Your bed's comfy. You can sleep in your bed for hours. But after you make that easy decision, it was easy to make, are you going to make any progress towards your goals, right? And that's where I'm getting at here is there's a whole bunch of easy decisions that we make. Playing video games can be an easy decision. Watching TV can be an easy decision. Like tonight, we're doing this podcast right now, right? Oh, look at the time. It's 10 p.m. my time, right? It's 10 p.m. my time. Here we're doing this podcast together, right? This is a hard decision, right? I could be watching TV with my wife. I could be in bed sleeping, getting ready to get up at 4 in the morning tomorrow. This is a hard decision. Not everyone's going to do this, right? So,
man, I thought it was always an easy decision to be with me.
Oh, well, yeah.
Besides, anyway, go ahead.
It was easy for me, right? I'm just trying to show the example, but I get what you're saying.
I got you.
I think the lesson here is that, like, make the hard decisions that'll get you towards your goals, and be honest with yourself, but then also be okay and understand if you make those easy decisions, you're not going to make that progress that you want to make. So, like, if I make the decision tonight to sleep in tomorrow until 10 in the morning for whatever reason, I would never do that, but let's say I did that. I have to be okay. I made that easy decision. I slept in. I have to be okay with the fact that I'm not going to make progress tomorrow now on my goals. And if I'm not okay with that, then I can't make that easy decision. I have to make the hard decision. And you could use that in any aspect of your life. Like, it doesn't have to be career. It's everything, right? You have to make the hard decisions to achieve your goals.
Yeah, yeah. And at the end of the day, you're really just choosing your hard, right? Because either you make the hard choice to get up early or block off some time to do what you want to do, or you're choosing to walk down the harder path of the path that you didn't go and do what you said you were going to do. Because at the end of the day, probably what you're doing is loosely or maybe very heavily tied to what you believe your life's purpose is, your life's mission, and living and not accomplishing that in and of itself is a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to live with. So I definitely do believe that you're choosing your hard. Is it short term or is it long term?
Yeah, I think it's situationally. Like what I mean is like I'm having Mountain Dew. Something as simple as this, right? I have a Mountain Dew bottle here. This was an easy decision for me, right? I love the taste of Mountain Dew. Some people hate it, right? But let's look at that, right? 290 calories, right? And a whole bunch of sugar. So on my health goal, this is an easy decision. I did not make a hard decision here.
Sure.
I should have water, right? Or I should have black coffee. Like, just to be really clear, like this was an easy decision because I love the taste of it. And mentally, I'm making an easy decision because I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have this. I don't care. I'm going to have it, right? A lot of people make these easy decisions because they're so quick and they just make them on the fly. But if you sit back and think about it, what's the impact of me having this, right? What's the impact of me going to Burger King and having a burger? Or a double Whopper with cheese or whatever. I hate to focus on health, but I'm just saying in general, what's the impact of you not working out tomorrow or you not?
It's probably very minimal in the short term. The impact, right? It's really a long term impact.
Exactly.
Like doing it over time.
You're going to make progress on your goal. Like we have CCIEs. What if you woke up in the morning like, yeah, I'm not going to work on my CCIE today? And what if that became your everyday normal, right? Would you have become a CCIE?
No, there's no way. I mean, you know it. We blocked off hours and made lots of sacrifices to do that, and for months and year and a half for me of time, and definitely there were a lot of things that you had to sacrifice, and honestly, I mean, there's probably other pillars of my life that I completely screwed up on to work on this one pillar for a while, and but. If we didn't have something to work on, what's the point of all this, right?
What's the point of life, right? And that goes with a whole other conversation about what is.
Oh, let's get philosophical. Maybe on another podcast, we'll get
sure thing, right? But to your point, you use the key word, right? Sacrifices, right? The hard decisions are what you're going to sacrifice so that you can achieve your goals. And that's a huge takeaway. Like, it doesn't matter if you're IT or that's your career, networking, servers, or if you're in accounting, like we talked about earlier, accounting, right? If you want to achieve something, you have to be willing to sacrifice for it. So make those hard decisions. You have to sacrifice for it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess would it be fair to say that you define success as kind of accomplishing a lot of your short-term goals over the long period of time? Or how would you define success for you? Where do you want to see yourself?
So success is whatever you are okay with. Like I want to be very clear. Like I tell you to make hard decisions and don't make the easy decisions, right? You can make the easy decisions, but you have to be okay with those decisions, right? You have to mentally be like, yeah, I'm making this decision right now. Like, I made this decision tonight and I don't care. Like, I'm making this decision. I'm totally not on my health goals. And I know that, but I'm not going to hamper myself. I'm not going to talk down about myself. Like, you have to be okay with the decisions you make. And don't hate yourself about it, right? Don't, if you don't make progress on your goals because you didn't make the hard decision, right? But you have to be okay with those easy decisions you make. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it does.
So for success, right? For success, like, we talked about that course. Like, I'm behind on creating course content. I wanted to be done by now, right? I mentally and I just wanted to be done already, but I have a lot of things going on, both day job related, and then at Cisco, and then outside of Cisco with everything I'm doing, and it's just taking a lot longer. And there was a huge learning curve. So there's a whole bunch of other factors that are playing in, but I'm still working on it. And so from a success perspective, I'm not where I wanted to be. So I would probably say I'm not successful, but I'm not going to stop. And we reserve the right to reassess things, right? So I would say reserve the right to reassess things and allow things to come in that make sense, right? Like if you don't know something, you don't know how hard it's going to be as you start out, right? You're going to have to learn. And then as you learn, you're like, okay, well, this is actually a lot harder than I thought. Like the DevNet certs, for example, right? I'm trying to do the DevNet certs. I'm behind the bandwagon. And so I've been trying to look at it here and there. I started looking at it the other day and I was like, whoa, I am not ready for this. Like it is, I have a computer science degree, but I am just not ready for this. I'm going to have to put some effort into these DevNet certs. So that's a totally different perspective, right? I had no idea. Originally, I talked to a few people and I was like, oh, I got a computer science degree. I'll be able to do some minimal amount of work and pass these exams. That was naive. I thought that was the case. That's not the case. Now that I learned about it, I can reassess and say, well, I'm not going to be successful on this right now, but let me plan out accordingly. Let me plan to plan. So I'll set a block of time to plan how I'm going to tackle the DevNet certs. And then I'm going to tackle them.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you mentioned reassessing. And yeah, that's definitely something that you got to do all the time. And I do it, probably more than I should, because you can get into a very deadly cycle of constantly reassessing. At the end of the day, I think it's just action, right? Success is action, right? Keeping yourself doing something and moving forward is better than just sitting down and watching TV or sitting down and doing nothing, right? So
you hit a good point, right? And you hit a good point. So I have a thing where I call, everyone talks about fail fast, fail often. And I think that's critical, right? So I'm a habitual dweller. I will dwell on a decision if I'm allowed to forever. So if I don't set myself into a block of time to make a decision on something, I will dwell for a year on that decision. I will literally dwell on it. So what I've learned over the years is to say, well, I need to make progress. I need to make action. I need to take an action on this. And so I will set myself into a block of time. And at the end of that block of time, I'll do all the research I've done and I have to make a decision, right? And so 30 minutes is usually my block of time. And if I've done all the research that I can do in 30 minutes, I make a decision. And then it could be the wrong decision, but I'm making a decision. I'm making action. I'm taking action. And either way, I'm making progress. I'm going to either find out that was the wrong decision and I have to reevaluate and reassess and then find that right decision, or it's going to be the right decision and I'm going to make progress. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely does. So I'll kind of venturing a little bit off topic towards the tail end of our podcast here and see a couple of things that I think probably keep you grounded. I see that you have hobbies back there. You got Rubik's Cube, you got your Yoda. Are those things that you do to help keep you sane, keep you on Earth, with all these different things that you're trying to do?
Yeah, so the Rubik's Cubes, I think we talked about a little bit of that beforehand too, right? I have all of the Rubik's Cubes from the 2x2, 3x3, 4x4, and 5x5. I think there's more, but those are the general ones that I've used over the years. And these are speed cubes, so they're a little bit faster to move than the others. And I think I told you, but I'll tell you, my fastest time when I was in high school on the 3x3 was about 30 seconds, 27 seconds, I think. The 4x4 was about 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes. The 5x5 was about 9 minutes. So not too fast for some of them, but no, I love them.
That's faster than I ever got the 3x3. I think I did like 56 seconds, and personally, it was all just because I got lucky.
That was a fluke. That 27 seconds, I could never do it again, right? So it was one of those situations where like all the pieces aligned, right? Like. And I skipped all the different parity issues, and I literally got lucky, honestly, with that situation. But no, so if anyone doesn't know, I have attention issues, focus issues.
Really?
Yeah. So I have focus issues. I've had focus issues my whole life, and so I'm hyperactive a lot. So I need things to do in the background. So my hands have to do things. So some of my coworkers, if they watch this, they'll know when I'm on a call, I usually have one of these in my hand and I'm just playing with it the whole time. I won't even look at it half the time, and I'm just doing it, right? I might glance down, look back up, talk to them, and I'm having real life conversations with them the whole time, and I'm just doing the Rubik's Cube. Or, I'm doodling on a paper, or I got a pencil in my hand and I'm, flinging it around. Or what I usually do, and I get yelled at about, is I have one of my Marine Corps knives in my hand and I'm just flipping it open, right? And, that's just me. This is just who I am, right? So,
do you have to explain yourself a lot of the time, or you just kind of see it as almost like breathing now? You don't have to really explain it.
I never explain myself, man. Like, this is just who I am.
Okay.
I am who I am, and I'm proud of it. And people are going to like me for who I am, and they're going to hate me for who I am. You know what I mean? Like, you like me, right? You know who I am, and you like me. So,
I love you, brother.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, man. We all have our quirks, right? I have my own as well. I deal with I would like to say it's mild anxiety, and so there will be times when I start feeling kind of almost like numb in the face when I'm presented with like an awkward situation, or I don't know, it comes out of nowhere. Haven't really been able to find the trigger for it. But yeah, sometimes I'll just feel off, and most of the time people can't even tell, but yeah, it's something that I deal with too. And I have things that I have to do outside of in the moment in order to get out of that, for the next couple of days. But yeah, thanks for sharing that, man.
Yeah. I have another on that thought, right? Anxiety. So I get really stressed and really anxious, and I don't know if people tell. I ask every time, but when I'm presenting, specifically presenting in front of leadership that I report to. So like, think of your VPs and your SVPs and your, whatever roles that you report to in a company. I can present to the senior leadership in a customer space that I'm in. So like, think of like colonels and generals, and I'm perfectly fine. I have no issue, right? I don't feel stressed. I get the normal like things, right? The normal, like, all right, I get ready, I got to present and get my suit and tie ready, make sure things are good to go. But like, that's my wheelhouse. Like these are customers, and I'm going to make them successful. I know that. But for some reason, it's always been an issue presenting in front of people that I report to, or like 3 levels up or 2 levels up. And I think it's a mental limitation. I get anxious, I get stressed. I will practice so much beforehand. So it's like I'm ready. And when I start, that first 30 seconds, it's a little flubble. I don't make up a word, right? It's a little flubbly. It's a little like I'm off, right? But after those 30 seconds, I'm on, right? And I'm on my game. But I'm overly stressed, anxious. And then it's done. When it's done, I always ask. So I'm like, hey, sir, ma'am, how was that? Were you okay? Did I come off wrong? I always want that feedback. And they're always like, no, you were great. You were awesome. You're a great presenter. But like, no, I have that internal anxiety all the time when I present in front of my leadership, for sure.
That's interesting. Yeah, to me, it's almost like I tell my wife this, and maybe I don't know if you can pick up on this, but I almost have like a social media anxiety sometimes. Oh, yeah. And I'm on YouTube over here with 10,000 subscribers, and sometimes I just get anxiety over posting a video, or or doing something or saying something wrong. But in front of people, I'm usually fine. It's almost these virtual kind of things that kind of get me anxious a bit, which is very difficult right now because everything's virtual for me.
Well, everything you say, right? Once you say it and you put it out there in video or audio form, it's out there forever, right? So I get the same anxiety about, did I say this right? Did I do this right? And I'm like, I think so. Yeah. And I second guess myself, and I review it again and again and again. And I'm like, no, I did it right. I'm good. But like, I don't think people realize that we have those feelings too. Like, we're not superheroes. Like we're not. We might have these certifications. We might have been in this industry for a while, but we're still human, right? We still have these same issues. We still have anxiety and stress, and we still worry about what people think, right? And even if we don't want to, we still worry about it. So like your 10,000 subscribers on YouTube, right? You worry about what you're posting to them, right? I'm sure you worry about what the value is for them. You don't want to post something that's not going to be valuable. Same thing for my podcast, right? I don't want to post something or do something that's not valuable to them. I don't want to send an email to my email list that's like totally flawed on value, right? Like that's horrible. So I'm with you on that 100%. Social media, anxiety. Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, and that's because my wife is on social media too, and she has a pretty large following too, and she's used to it at this point. And for her, it's more of an in-person thing, and I find that interesting that we have that sort of a, I don't want to call it balance, but counterbalance in our in how we feel about social situations. But yeah, what I've for those of you that may also have kind of similar feelings as well, is I think I always go back to nobody is judging you that hard, and if they are, then they're probably not in the right place, right? They're looking for content that's different, and you see it all the time, even with some of these larger networking. I'll just say like Network Chuck. You know, he even like goes over like some of like what his haters have said. I found that really funny, and that he's able to do that because, you know, when you have that many subscribers, you're always going to have that like very, very small number of people that are just going to hate for the sake of hating. And it's like, dude, you miss the point completely. And it's like, that's how you have to kind of just blow it off. It's like either they're not the right person for my content, so it's not really my fault, or they're just being jerks. And
There's always gonna be haters. Like that's there's gonna be haters, and you got to be happy with what you're doing, right? You're gonna have anxiety and stress and all that stuff, right? But and I think you know, Network Chuck, he's in a different level, right? He's got so many more subscribers. He's getting feedback constantly on what he's doing, right? But like, yep. And if you go to mine, right, I think I have 300 subscribers. So like, I'm not getting feedback on what I'm doing is good, right? Like, it's just not. I'm not getting the feedback, which is fine. But I also know what I do is good. I'm going to do professional level content, and that's fine, right? But I might have problems. I might make a mistake, and that's okay too, right? We're not perfectionists. Well, we're not perfect. We might be trying to be perfectionists, but we're not perfect. And if we're trying to make perfect content, we're never going to get anything out there, right? So I think we talked about it at one point in time. We recorded it, but like we want to put 20% of the work in to make an 80% viable product, right? And there's going to be potential issues. There's going to be potential problems and errors, and you just got to own those, right? So that's what I would say is I'm going to post something, YouTube, podcast, whatever, and I potentially could have an error on it, right? I'm going to do my best to remove those as much as possible, to limit those. But let's say I have those errors, I got to own it. That's just own it, right? And then once you own it, it's totally over at that point. You address it. If you made the error, you tell them what the right answer is, or you tell them, hey, I made this mistake. Here's the right answer. And then you're like, okay, moving on, right? I made a mistake. It's over. I'm done. Moving on.
Yeah, so true, man. Well, Zigs, I just want to say thank you so much for joining the podcast. Kind of ending it on a more personal note there, and talking about some of our own struggles, but hopefully it's helpful for some of you guys listening out there. And really, it goes beyond IT here, and that's what I try to do. That's why I like to try to keep it as a loose of a format, and really more of conversational piece as I possibly can. And hopefully you guys appreciate that out there. Zigs, thanks a lot. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Yeah, man. Hey, anytime. I think it was a lot of fun. Hopefully people got some great value from our conversation today. You know, and if they want to reach out to me, you're going to have all my links in the description. You can find me on all the socials too if you want. Anywhere where LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. Just search for Zsiga. You'll find me. I'm out there, and I'll help you any way I can. Same with you. I can too, right? So.
Yeah, and I'll be on your podcast soon, so look for me there, guys.
Oh yeah.
If you guys want to know what I do, that's where you'll find out. So you heard it here, folks. Just check out the description, check out the show notes if you got to find Zigs anywhere else. And thanks a lot, guys. Have a great one.